today. First, we'll define what strategic living actually is. Then we'll break down the three main pillars: housing strategy, active aging, and community identity. And finally, we'll see how the whole shebang snaps together into one connected Singapore ecosystem.
All right, let's start at the top. What exactly is strategic living?
Well, the strategic living framework is this brilliantly Singapore-focused way of looking at our long-term choices. Notice how it connects the dots between where we live, how we age, and the communities that give us a sense of belonging. This isn't just some dry financial roadmap. It completely acknowledges that your home, your physical health, and your neighborhood aren't isolated little boxes. They're deeply interwoven threads that make up your overall life readiness.
Let's move on to Pillar 1, Housing Strategy. I want you to ask yourself a really tough question. Am I making a housing decision that supports my future or just my present? It's a massive mindset shift, right? It forces us to stop looking at property as just a roof over our heads for the next, say, 5 years, and look at the actual horizon. Like, will this specific flat actually work for you when you're 50 or 65?
Because let's be honest, it is so easy to get swept up in the short-term noise of buying, selling, or upgrading. But a true long-term strategic view goes way deeper. We're talking family planning, your retirement readiness, those absolute make-or-break CPF decisions, cash flow, and ultimately your lifestyle security. It's about making sure your capital works to protect your long-term independence, instead of just chasing the latest property trend.
And to help you actually execute that, the framework brings in a dedicated platform called UProperty.sg. Now, this isn't just another property listing site. Think of it more as an intelligence hub. It offers policy-aware property planning, calculators, and buyer readiness tools that heavily factor in your CPF and affordability. Basically, it cuts through all that market noise to give you practical housing intelligence, so you can make choices from a place of total clarity.
Which naturally brings us to Pillar 2, Active Aging. Here's another sobering question. Are you building the physical capacity to live independently for as long as possible? We spend hours and hours obsessing over our financial longevity, but actually, scratch that. How much time do we genuinely spend on our physical longevity? Aging well is absolutely not just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life and true independence to those years.
Because getting older smoothly, it doesn't just happen on autopilot. You have to actively protect your strength, your balance, and your mobility. Why? Well, because those physical pillars literally support your emotional ones, your independence, your confidence, and your dignity. The source material really drives home that this takes practical movement and awareness. You can't just cross your fingers and hope you stay mobile. You've got to strategize for it.
And just like there's a platform for housing, there's one for physical intelligence too. UFitness.sg is the framework's hub for senior readiness and practical movement education. It totally strips away all that intimidating, intense gym culture and just hones in on evidence-based active aging. The goal here is maintaining functional independence, making sure you can easily get up from a chair, play with the grandkids, or just walk down to the Hawker Center without worrying about a fall.
All right, let's jump to Pillar 3, Community Identity.
Ask yourself, what kind of community, identity, and shared future are we actually helping to build? This is where we shift from me to we. Think about it. You could have the absolute perfect flat and be in peak physical health, but if you don't feel connected to the people and places around you, well, that long-term plan is going to feel pretty hollow. The framework calls this community capital. It's all about the places, memories, and culture that build a neighborhood's identity. The source gives some fantastic, uniquely Singaporean examples here, like Gardens by the Bay. It's not just a tourist spot. It's a space for nature walks, active aging, and family bonding. It's living heritage. Or look at sport volunteerism with Teen Neela. It proves how taking on small roles for larger public events massively builds up our shared community capital and spirit of service. So the big takeaway here? Long-term living is never, ever purely financial or physical. True strategic living demands connection, heritage, and community right alongside your health and your housing. It's about finding meaning in a fast-changing city and recognizing how our heritage continues to shape modern life in Singapore. And finally, let's look at one connected Singapore ecosystem. This is how all those pieces snap together, like a giant puzzle. You've got AndrewKoh.sg acting as the trust headquarters for heritage, public good awareness, and overall life planning. Then, UProperty.sg steps in for policy-aware housing, affordability, and CPF strategy. And right alongside that, UFitness.sg handles the evidence-based aging, strength, and mobility. It is a fully complete, cohesive system built specifically for the Singapore resident.
Before we wrap up, I do want to highlight one vital layer of protection that's built right into this ecosystem: public good awareness. A perfect example from the source is their strong focus on scam awareness. Protecting your long-term plan means protecting yourself from bad actors, right? The framework actively educates people on how scammers weaponize fear, urgency, trust, and digital channels to force bad decisions. This kind of awareness is literally a shield for the wealth and peace of mind you're working so hard to build. And I find the entire ethos of this framework incredibly refreshing. To quote the source directly, no noise, no hard selling, just practical perspectives for readers who value clarity, long-term thinking, and meaningful living in Singapore. That really hits the nail on the head. It's entirely about objective, time-respectful guidance rather than high-pressure sales tactics.
Which leaves us with one final vital question. How will your property, health, and community choices shape your future in Singapore? Are you still making those decisions in silos, or are you ready to tackle them as one connected strategy? Take a moment today to really consider your own life readiness. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this gave you a fresh way to look at your long-term future. Keep learning, keep planning, and I'll see you next time.